wear African medallions and talk about black empowerment and things of that nature, we followed suit. Plain and simple, we followed suit. So to trickle it down to my crew, Dopey and the Terrorists, right. They were the first Dopey conscious rap group in the South. Right. Period. From the time from maybe 91 when they signed to Rap a Lot, they were the first group to speak on that pro-black conscious level. And because of Dope E, him being immersed into the consciousness, he invited me out in Gangsta Nip to a Muhammad Mosque meeting in like 92. Y'all come to the mosque with me. Okay, here we go. Let's see what they're talking about. And we went and our heads got blew off. Like, wow, like who is this guy? How they know this? And that's what introduced us to it. And once you hear it and you start to accept it, then naturally anything that becomes a part of you, you regurgitate it back out through your music or through the way you try to live and things of that nature. So that was the origin with us, but it started from being influenced by the Chuck D's and the KRS-Ones of the world, all the way down to my homies putting us into it.
So I wonder if you can talk about maybe a bit more specifically how those topics, those ideas get expressed in your music. And so I'm thinking of songs like Valley of Decision, right, where it's this conversation, this tension between God and Satan. Right. And then I think of a song from your record, Enter the Iron Trap, one of the Big Seven, a song called Elijah, which gives a history of Elijah Muhammad, and connects the dots between, as you talked about earlier, the religious dimensions of the Negro spirituals, and you connect the change over time, the history piece, to specifically the teachings of the Nation of Islam. And so I wonder if you can speak specifically to a few tracks or a few songs and how that expresses itself in your art.
I mean, Valley of Decision, which is one of my more popular songs, I think it is popular among people who heard it because it's a reflection of how we all are. We all have that spiritual war that takes place inside of us, where the devil on the left and the God on the right shoulder are fighting to get you to follow either one. And that's where that song comes from. And I think that's why people relate to it, because of the fact that no matter how spiritual you're trying to be, no matter how much belief you have in a higher power, you still out here in this world, and the world has a pull on you that in some cases is stronger than the pull that the Creator has on you, because we tend to we've been leaning towards that, and we've been exposed to that. We get exposed more to the dirt and the negativity more than we get exposed to the godly side of life, and that's just a fact. So you find yourself in that struggle to do right. Should I do this? I want to do it. I'm tempted to do this. Then it's days where the God wins, and it's days where the devil wins. It's plain and simple, and those are just facts. So that's why that song, I think, really connects with a lot of people. But when you talk about songs like Elijah, I have a song called Elijah. I have another song called Point Number 12, where I talk about Master Farad Muhammad, who's the teacher of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And those songs are just songs that I wrote to pay homage to those men who I credit with giving me my body of knowledge. I wouldn't know any of this if it wasn't for those men. So I have to humble myself to not be running around here thinking that the knowledge that I've attained and acquired comes from me. I'm all wise and I got all this. No, so I make sure that periodically I make sure that I put a song out that lets the world know whether they like it or not. Because I have situations, I deal with situations where people will talk about how much they love my music and how much knowledge I got, and man, you so deep and you got all this knowledge. I don't understand how you can follow Farrakhan. Okay, who do you think I got it from? So you condemn the tree but accept the fruit. That's ridiculous. That's insane to me. So I have to let people know, it's like anything on that level that you appreciate in me, I'm telling you who I got it from. So if you got a problem with him, then you are in a conflicting situation with yourself, because that's the root. So I mean, I like to make sure that I prop the individuals up, the men up, and the women up who gave it to me. I can't take credit for it.
Yeah, and you'd mentioned this in a previous conversation, but the seventh song on every album reflects a spiritual theme or topic.
Right.
And so I wonder if you can talk a little bit about that, because that wasn't always the case in your records.
No doubt. I mean, you know, seven being the number of God, the number of perfection. I don't remember when I started doing it, but yeah, every seventh song on my album is gonna be a song that pays homage to the Creator in some form. And at first, I would just make a God song, and it's like, okay, I mean, it's only so many ways I can do this. So now I kind of do with different variations of it, but it's still gonna be a song that reflects some form of appreciation um, to the Most High. Yeah.
Okay, and thinking about the number seven, thinking about the 5%er tradition, the derivative movement that came out of the Nation of Islam in the 1960s, Clarence 13X and so forth, and the 5%er influence within hip hop. Is there a connection there?
Yeah.
In your music?
Well, I mean, of course, like you mentioned, the 5%er movement is a spinoff of the Nation of Islam. You know, Clarence 13X started it up. He used to be a member of the Nation, and he branched off and did his own thing. So it is a connection, because a lot of the teachings are the exact teachings from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You know, they just took it and kind of, you know, did their thing with it. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, the 5% Nation has had so many artists that have contributed to the totality of hip hop. You know, you go back to guys like the Poor Righteous Teachers and individuals on that level. If I'm not mistaken, guys like Brand Nubian and those guys, you know, all those guys are 5%ers, and they have made some of the greatest, most classic hip hop albums that ever come out. And in the process, they have woke a lot of people up through those music and through those teachings. But the root of those teachings is still the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So it doesn't matter if you represent, claim to be 5% Nation, or you claim to be Nation Islam, you claim to be Hebrew Israelite, any of those bodies are now Moors, whatever you claiming. At some point, Elijah Muhammad got to get some props for that, for being at the root of a lot of that, along with Noble Drew Ali and greats like that also.
Yeah, and for listeners to talk very briefly about some of that history, I'll start momentarily with the 5%ers, and I think of also of other rappers such as Dead Prez, who have the song "The G in Me," which is really a really creative articulation of 5%er teachings. And so when we talk about 5%ers, we're referring to the idea within the teachings that 85% of the world is spiritually blind, 10% have some recognition, but then the 5%ers speak these
Poor righteous
religious
teachers.
teachings.
Yeah. You know, the 10% are the elite who controlled everything. The 85 are the deaf, dumb, and blind who have no clue of what's going on. And the 5% represent the poor righteous teachers, the individuals who have the knowledge of all and are projecting that knowledge out. So.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Moors and the Moorish Science Temple and Noble Drew Ali and Hebrew Israelites. and these sorts of movements that have roots in the U.S. in the 19th and late 19th, early 20th century, who are active at a time of Jim Crow racism, and so they are pulling together these religious teachings from different streams and presenting a spiritual message of economic self-determination, of black self-determination, a kind of Pan-African connection to West Africa, but it's also it's a religious movement, it's a political movement, it's about economic practices at a particular time in American history that like hip hop itself is insurgently speaks back to a culture and a society that has as its focus the destruction of black people. Yeah. And so these movements not only invest dignity in individual black people, but they also speak back in resistance to a white supremacist society.
Yeah, again, one of the things that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches is that dissatisfaction brings about a change. So to whatever degree that the people are dissatisfied, that's the degree of change that you'll see. So if there's a 40% dissatisfaction rate among the people, you'll see a 40% change. But at the time that he wrote those words or spoke those words, he stated that the world was at a 100% rate of dissatisfaction. That means everybody is dissatisfied, which is going to eventually start to affect a 100% or basically a 180 change in the society and in the world. So yeah, all of our advancements as black people are born out of our struggles, are born out of our oppression. So when you have a Marcus Garvey, when you have a Noble Drew Ali, when you have an Honorable Elijah Muhammad that you said that were coming up in the 20s and the 30s at a time where a black man could be hung for just glancing in the wrong direction, blinking his eye, rubbing his eyes the wrong way. And these individuals were boldly stepping up and calling for black people to be self-sufficient and independent and not run and depend on sticking their hand out to the white man to give us this and begging and bootlicking and a lot of things that a lot of us were doing and still doing to this day on a higher level. Then you have to look at men like that and say, well, who's backing these men? Because people are getting murdered for less. You know, we had Black Wall Street in the 20s in Oklahoma, and they wiped that out. That got burnt to a crisp. But you have Elijah Muhammad, who built basically a nation within a nation during those same times, maybe a little bit later in the 30s and 40s, all the way up, and they couldn't lay a hand on him. And his claim always was, and still is, that he's backed by God. And in that time, if you're not able to see anyone that was able to touch him and to destroy that movement, even though it was perceived to be, then you know you have to at least ask yourself the question, well, who is backing him? You know, because and even guys like Marcus Garvey, you know, they deported Marcus Garvey, but his message made an impact. It made a great impact. So, you know, it's only so long before people start to go back, and we have to go back into that history and read about the individuals who this day's society, and like I say, the white supremacist mind, they try to keep those individuals away from us. Y'all don't ever see, they'll stick a picture of this guy up during Black History Month, but you never see Honorable Elijah Muhammad during Black History Month. And I don't know, he's talking about this man a lot. Yeah, because if an individual is being kept from a particular people, you got to ask yourself, why are they keeping this man and this man's teachings from black people? And you got to ask yourself, what impact would this guy make if his words were able to enter into the minds of the people, the whole world?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And as I listen to you talk more and more, I think one of the most dope things, man, that you do in your music is how you integrate that philosophy and that theology into your lyrics, right?
Mm.
So, I mean, you're spitting theology over beats,
Right.
right? Which, in some sense, acts as your pulpit, for lack of a better term.
Right. Right.
And so, I don't know if that's something you intentional that you do. Do you go into a song thinking, "Hey, I'm just gonna lay out some theology"? What's the process?
Yeah.
For those types of songs, or does it come together? I mean, I like to believe it's intentional.
Yeah. No, it's intentional. It just depends on the nature of the song. Like if we speaking about a song like point number 12, where I'm speaking about Master Farah Muhammad, then I'm going straight in, speaking directly to the points and the principles of what he is, the history of it, the science of it, my belief and perspectives of it. That's one that you say, I'm not pulling no punches. Now you have other songs where you might say, you know what, I want to get this particular message across, but I know, as we said earlier, I can't just beat people over the head with, I'll keep using scriptures as a reference. I have to be strategic in the way I present it so it can be better accepted. Because um, if I come too extreme on it, I run the risk of turning people off. So my philosophy on that is to always say, I'm just going to speak reality. And a lot of times people who listen to my music, if they just becoming familiar with my music, they don't know what I believe in if they haven't come across one of those songs that speak that. If I make a song like we talk about the track sevens on all my album, on some of those songs, you can listen to it. I don't mention a religion. I don't mention any type of ideology. I speak on principles. You may hear me say God, but that's it. So a Christian can listen to it and say, man, that's what's up. A Catholic, a Jew, a Muslim, anybody can listen to it and say, I can agree with that because just the basic foundational principles that I'm speaking on in the song are applicable to any religion that you can claim. Now, when you start trying to delve and go deep into it, then you might say, man, I like that. What is this guy? Who is he? They say, oh, he's a Muslim. You have people that go, oh, okay, really? Then you have people that go, oh, man, I can't listen to that no more. But you agree with the principles, and that's our biggest problem is that we get so caught up in labels that we ignore the principles. And so it's like, man, we can all hang out together. We can all hang out together. We can go somewhere and just be kicking, have the greatest time because we dealing with three individuals who understand that the label means nothing without the principles under which the labels are supposed to operate. So.
Yeah, Chris's question about lyrical construction with respect to religion brings me to another question about your creative process, but then also a question about storytelling. So in your song Chess Pieces, for example, you refer to yourself as a mad lyrical professor. And in your song The Champion, you describe yourself as a lyrical Superman, and in The Epitome, you talk about being a musical gymnast. And so these are really powerful, poetic phrases. So along those lines, I wonder if you could talk about the creative process. In other words, what kind of work do you do with words? And then relatedly, one of the most powerful aspects of your art is how you tell stories, right? How you narrate ordinary everyday life, but then you engage in the imagination. And so I've been particularly struck with what I call your dialogic raps. So I mentioned Valley of Decision. I think of antagonistic radio, where You're talking with a radio
Right,
DJ
right.
and making comments on the industry. But then another popular angle for your work is the Sorcerer Saga, where the sorcerer and the wizard, who you are in the tales,
Yeah.
you know, fight these earthly and galactic battles. And from a creative standpoint, you tell these stories across albums, right? You leave breadcrumbs,
Right.
as the saying goes.
Right.
And so I wonder if you can talk about the creative process on the one hand. On the other hand, I wonder if you can talk about the role of storytelling in your art.
I mean, I had to credit that to being an only child, man. I grew up, man, on my mother's side. I'm the only child, and I used to have to go in the room and find ways to play. You know what I'm saying? Like just to come up with things to do and to entertain myself. Because if I wasn't outside playing, or if I didn't have my cousins visiting, I mean, I would just go in the room and just be talking to myself, making up characters, playing with my little men or whatever. I grew up watching cartoons and big sci-fi fan, so all of those elements contributed to um, my imagination and contributed to the creativity that I try to exhibit in those types of songs, those story types of songs. But so I created characters all my life, but music just gave me the opportunity and the platform to bring those characters to life. So Lil Flea, Street Military, way back in the early '90s, he gave me the nickname the Wizard.
Yes.
You know, every time I saw him, he would call me that. Like, so it just kind of stuck, and everybody started calling me the Wizard. So when I got into that whole sorcerer thing, I was like, okay, well, that's how that all came together. But you know, I grew up watching the Twilight Zone. That's probably one of my favorite shows ever, man. And I always felt like Rod Serling was a genius, man, and just how he would lay out them storylines and the plot twist that'll just bust you in the head out of left field at the end. Like, oh, like I didn't know it was going in that direction. And so I tried to incorporate that in my music as well, to be like, man, I want to be telling a story and just having everybody on this particular ride that you think is going this way. Then all of a sudden, toward the end, I just and just scoot you off to the left somewhere and mess your head up. So, you know, the Sorcerer Saga thing came about, and it just really grew because I had no intentions on making it become a saga. It was just a, you know, one-time thing, but I was able to connect it with previous stories, then add to it, and you know, a lot of my fans are real big fans of, even to this day. And like, man, is he coming back? Nope, he's not coming back. Sorcerer's dead. I gave you 7 or 8 parts and it's done. Because sometimes you can mess it up if you try to keep going too long. You know, you got Friday the 13th part 22 is get corny after a while, you know. But it's just imagination, man. That's all it is, and just trying to be creative, but at the same time not corny, you know. And people actually get into the story. You know, the audience actually get. People hit me all the time, and they offer suggestions. Well, you ever thought about bringing the sorcerer and making it? I mean, they actually add to the story, man. So it's cool. You know, it's cool that people have taken to it like that.
So I have to ask you this question, Reno. I need to know, man. Do you still write? Do you still write lyrics, or is it
Yeah.
is it is it
I-
is
I'm
it
not.
is
I'm
it
not.
coming off
I'm
the
not
top of the?
I'm not technology. I'm not. I've never been a great freestyler. Freestyling was never my strong suit. I'm pen and pad. That's
Okay.
me. That's me.
Okay.
And I don't rap. I'm not in the booth holding my phone up. I'm pen and pad. You know, when I go drop verses, when I do my albums or when I do features, you gonna see words scribbled in pen on a paper because that's just how I came up. That's what I'm used to. And I think that the actual process of actual writing, that's a therapeutic process. That's very important to me because it's like when you're playing ball. It's like when you're working out. You getting it out. You getting that aggression out. You getting the tension out. It's the same when you writing. So I'll type when I'm on a computer doing something else. But when it's time to write my lyrics, I'm gonna write. So you'll see scratch outs and scribble scratches and mess ups and all that on my paper. But that's all the part of getting it out. You know, and at the end of the day, when I look at my hold the paper up and it's just raggedy and looking crazy, it's a sense of accomplishment. Like, man, this is what it took. This is what it took, man. Oh, yeah.
Do you have a certain time of day or night that you write better than? I mean, what are your peak hours?
Yeah.
I mean, are you getting up 6 in the morning?
Oh heck no.
Is
man.
it?
I'm not a morning person. My best writing takes place in between the hours of maybe 11 p.m. to 5 in the morning. I'm a night owl, so some of my best stuff I can write any time of the day, but the best time to write for me is when I feel like I got the whole world to myself. It's 3 in the morning. It's quiet. Nobody's bothering me, and I got the whole planet to myself, and I can just zone in and get the most out of it. But I can write any time of day if I have to.
And I'm gonna tell you why I asked him that question. I was managing an artist, and I always would ask him, "Man, when do you get your verses from Reno?" And he would always tell me,
Yeah.
between those hours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So it was between those.
Yeah.
Right.
That window of time that they were getting their verses from you. And then we've been in the studio together,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And 11, 12 o'clock,
Yeah.
1 o'clock, Reno's pulling up.
That's when I kick in, man, because at that time, I'm a little better now, but at that time, man, I didn't wake up till 2 in the evening. You know, I mean, my day wouldn't start till 1:30, 2 o'clock, man. And so, because I would be up all night long, I'm up all night. Sometimes I would go to sleep, and when the light is just coming out, it's just 6 in the morning, just starting to get light outside. So I'm sleeping all the way up into the day. So that's my hours, man. I've never been a morning person. Even when I had to go to school, if somebody said, man, we're gonna meet at 8 a.m. I'm like, no, y'all gonna meet at 8 a.m. I'm gonna be at the crib. You know, I can't do it. And Phil, a bad witness, was like, man, come to the school. I'm like, what time? 10. I'm like, can we do 12? You know, because I'm just not a morning person. It just never been, man. Never
Right.
been, man.
Right. Well, I like how you talked about putting pen to paper, and of course you talk about the black books and the sheets of rhymes. And so, in one of your recent YouTube videos, you opened the cabinet and showed us your notebooks. And so, how many of those black notebooks would you say you filled up over the years?
I'm on 13 now. I'm on number 13, and for years it was just this impression that I only had one, and which would be physically impossible to have all those songs or all those years just in one folder. So when I did the album book number 7 in 2007, that's the first time I just like basically revealed that I had all these different, and I go all the way back to like my first one, all the raggedy and all that.
Right.
So, but since then, I've added about 6 more filled up folders of songs. So now I'm on like number 13 right now.
Okay. And when I hear you talk about putting pen to paper and writing those rhymes and drafting out your ideas, I can't help but think of connections between rap music and the art of poetry.
Yeah.
And so I'm reminded of a book by a scholar named Adam Bradley who published a book titled Book of Rhythms, The Poetics of Hip Hop.